In the year 280, the Western Jin dynasty destroyed Eastern Wu and completed the unification of the realm. Yet, only 11 years later, in 291, the rebellion of the 8 princes broke out. 8 princes of the Sima clan, along with their followers, fought against each other, plunging the empire into chaos. At this moment, the Hu people finally saw the opportunity to establish their own power. They moved south one after another and set up various separatist regimes. Thus began the era of the Wuhu chaos, also known as the Wuhu 16 kingdoms. But did they really establish exactly 16 states? Of course not. The 16 states listed by historians are merely representative examples. They include former Zhao, founded by the Xiongnu, later Qin, founded by the Qiang of Xia, Hu Xia, former Yan, founded by the Xianbei, later Yan, southern Yan, northern Yan, southern Liang and western Qin, Cheng Han, founded by the Di, former Qin and later Liang, later Zhao, founded by the Ji, former Liang, founded by the Han and western Liang. To summarize, 5 Liang states, 4 Yan states, 3 Qin states, 2 Zhao states, plus Cheng Han and Xia, Hu Xia. Besides these 16, there were also other separatist regimes, such as Duan Shi and Dai, established by the Xianbei, northern Wei and western Yan, Tu Yuhun, Chaoqi, founded by the Dai, Ran Wei, founded by the Han, and Jai Wei, founded by the Dingling. Altogether, this era saw the rise of about 25 separatist regimes. The Wuhu 16 kingdoms can be counted from 304, when Liu Yuan of the Xiongnu established the Han Zhao regime, and Li Xiong founded Chenghan, lasting until 439, when Tuoba Tao, Emperor Taiwu of northern Wei, destroyed northern Liang and unified the north. This period spanned 135 years of history. During the Wuhu chaos, they roared across the land like tigers devouring 1,000 miles. But once their curtain gradually fell, where did these 5 major Hu groups go? What destinies did they face? Liu Yan claimed descent from Modu Chanyu and a Han princess. Seizing the opportunity of the Western Jin's internal disorder, he raised his banner in Shanxi, honoring Liu Shan, the last ruler of Shu Han, as his imperial ancestor, and established the Han regime. A Xiongnu man at that moment sought to restore the Han dynasty. History indeed is fascinating. But this was not strange, for back in the reign of Emperor Wu of Han, the Xiongnu had been defeated and scattered, some fleeing westward, others assimilated into Han society, becoming known as the Southern Xiongnu. During Cao Cao's time, the Southern Xiongnu were divided into 5 tribes, known as the 5 divisions of the Xiongnu, in order to better control them. Yet from the Southern Xiongnu emerged a remarkable figure, Liu Yuan. From the reign of Wei's Emperor Ming, Cao Rui, he had been sent as a hostage to Luoyang. There, he studied Confucian texts deeply and became a devoted admirer of Han culture. Thus, when he raised the banner of restoring the Han dynasty, it was completely natural. The Han regime he founded was later renamed Zhao when his kinsman Liu Yao succeeded him. Hence, it is known as former Zhao or Han Zhao. After the fall of the Han Zhao regime, many of its people were slaughtered by Shi Lei of later Zhao, and the survivors gradually merged with the Xianbei. From this fusion arose a new group, the Tiefu. Helian Bobo, a Tiefu leader, was essentially also Xiongnu. He founded the Xia, Hu Xia regime, which controlled Guanzhong and was once powerful. But after Helian Bobo's death, internal strife broke out within his clan. Tuoba Tao of northern Wei seized the chance to crush Xia, Hu Xia. Those Xiongnu survivors either merged with the Xianbei or were eliminated. Some others intermarried with the Yuezhi and gradually formed the Lushui Hu. Among them, the Jukmeng Shun clan became a notable representative. At first, they served later Liang, but later they established northern Liang. Northern Liang was the last regime destroyed by Tuoba Tao of northern Wei. From then on, the Xiongnu never rose again in East Asia to found any significant regime. The Lushui Hu gradually blended into other peoples. During the Wuhu 16 kingdoms, the only regime established by the Qiang was later Qin. In fact, even before Yao Qiang rose to power, his elder brother Yao Xiang had already attempted to found a state. However, Yao Xiang was simply unfortunate. The former Qin, established by the Di people, was destroyed. After Yao Qiang was captured, he served under the former Qin. When the former Qin suffered defeat at the Battle of Fei River, Yao Qiang decisively raised troops in rebellion. He not only killed his former master Fu Jian, but also founded the later Qin dynasty, intending to replace the former Qin. The later Qin ruled in Guanzhong for 33 years, reaching its peak during the reign of Yao Qiang's son, Yao Xing. After Yao Xing's death, the state quickly declined. His son Yao Hong could not withstand the pressure and was decisively defeated by the famous Eastern Jin general Liu Yu. The later Qin was then declared destroyed. After the later Qin fell, the majority of the Qiang people assimilated into the Han population. However, there remained a group who preserved their ethnic identity, gradually giving rise to branches such as the Dongxiang and Dongnu. The Xianbei were truly formidable. It can be said that after the decline of the Xiongnu, the Xianbei completely took their place in the north. Moreover, the Xianbei accomplished what the Xiongnu had failed to do, for they genuinely ruled the north for a long period of time. The Xianbei had many branches, which could generally be divided into the Tuoba, Murong, Yuan, Duan, and Qifu clans. The Tuoba clan established the state of Dai, northern Wei, and southern Liang. The Murong clan founded former Yan, later Yan, western Yan, southern Yan, Tuyuhun, and northern Yan. The Yuan clan later established the northern Zhou regime. The Duan clan created Duan Qi, and the Qifu clan established Western Qin. It can be said the Xianbei were extremely powerful, producing so many regional regimes that it is impossible to describe them in just a few words. We can only gain a general understanding of their rise and fall. First, the Murong clan's 5 Yan kingdoms and Tuyuhun. Murong Jun established former Yan, but during the reign of his son Murong Wei, it was destroyed by the former Qin. Murong Jun's younger brother, Murong Cui, sought refuge with the former Qin, and after its collapse, he founded later Yan on his own. At the same time, Murong Jun's son Murong Hong established Western Yan, which was subsequently destroyed by his uncle's later Yan. Later, Yan too met misfortune, as the northern Wei, which it had once supported, split it in two. The northern part became Northern Yan, and the southern part became Southern Yan. Southern Yan was destroyed during the Northern Wei's campaigns, while Northern Yan was later annihilated by Tuoba Tao of Northern Wei. From then on, the Yan states were all gone. Most of the Murong clan was executed upon the fall of their states. Murong Jun's grandfather, Murong Hui, had often quarreled with his brother, Murong Tuyuhun, out of jealousy for his talent. Angered, Murong Tuyuhun led part of his people to the northwest to establish a new state, which became the Tuyuhun regime. Tuyuhun endured for a long time, surviving until it was finally destroyed in the Tang dynasty. Second, the Tuoba clan's 3 regional regimes. Originally, the Tuoba had established the state of Dai in the north, but it was destroyed by Fujian of the former Qin. Later, with support from Murong Cui, Tuoba Gui restored the clan's fortunes. After subduing nearby tribes, Tuoba Gi established the Northern Wei dynasty. The Northern Wei grew ever stronger, not only defeating later Yan, but also annexing Northern Yan, Xia, Huxia, Northern Liang, and Chuqi, thereby achieving unification of the north. As for the Southern Yang branch, this arose when the Hexi Xianbei migrated during troubled times and came to be known as the Tufa clan. Tufa Wugu had originally served under Lu Guang of later Liang, but when later Liang declined, they founded their own state of Southern Liang. However, Southern Liang was weak and was eventually destroyed by Western Qin, lasting only 17 years. This branch of the Tuoba later merged into the Han people together with the Northern Wei. Third, the Yuan clan's Northern Zhou. Like Northern Wei, Northern Zhou belongs to the Southern and Northern dynasties period rather than the 16 Kingdoms era. After Northern Wei split into Western Wei and Eastern Wei, Northern Zhou replaced Western Wei. 24 years later, Emperor Wen of Sui replaced Northern Zhou and founded the Sui dynasty. Although the Yuan family assimilated into the Han, they still preserved their distinct surname. Today, the more than 20,000 descendants of the Yuan are very likely from the lineage of the northern Zhou aristocracy. Fourth, the Duan clan's Duan Qi. Few people mention the Duan Xianbei because during the 16 Kingdoms period, they often played the role of supplying empresses. In other words, the Duan women of that era were more prominent than the men. They intermarried with the Murong and Tuoba clans, producing many empresses. As for Duan Qi, it lasted only 6 years and thus was hardly valued in history. After Duan Qi was destroyed by former Yan, the Duan people were relocated to Qiang and gradually assimilated into other tribes. Fifth, the Qifu clan's Western Jin. Qifu Guoren, originally a Xianbei chieftain, had once served under the former Qin. After its destruction, Qifu Guoren established Western Jin. Western Jin itself was once destroyed by later Qin. However, 9 years later, the state was restored once again. Until the year 431, when the state of Xia, Huxia, invaded Western Jin. Unable to resist, Western Jin was destroyed at that time. Altogether, it had lasted 37 years. More than 500 members of the Qifu clan were exterminated by Xia, Huxia. Many people are not familiar with the Di people, but you should know that the Di once unified the north and the Shu region, almost bringing the entire land under one rule. The first Di who rose to prominence was Li Te. They began their enterprise in Shu, opening the chapter of the Five Barbarians disturbing China. Li Te unfortunately died in battle, but his son Li Xiong established the Cheng Han regime. In the end, Cheng Han was destroyed by the famous Eastern Jin general Huan Wen. That branch of the Dai was nearly annihilated. The Di of Luoyang were fiercer. Fu Hong laid the foundation and Fu Jian established former Qin. Fu Jian led former Qin to its peak, achieving the unification of the north. Yet, during Fu Jian's reign, former Qin was defeated at the Battle of Fei River. After that, it disintegrated and headed toward destruction. The ruling clan of former Qin was not slaughtered. Most of them lingered in the north, joining other separatist regimes. Many went to Chuchi, where they lasted the longest. Later, Liang was also very interesting. Lu Guang had been a general of former Qin. He was sent by Fu Jian to pacify small states in the western regions. When Lu Guang completed his mission and returned, he found that former Qin had collapsed, Fu Jian was dead, and the ruler was gone. Therefore, Lu Guang simply occupied Liangzhou and established later Liang. After later Liang was destroyed, most of this branch of the Di under Lu Guang took refuge in later Qin. The Ji was simpler because in history they only established one separatist regime, which was later Zhao. The Ji man Shi Lei had once been sold into slavery. After he sought refuge with the Xiongnu leader Liu Yuan, he began to rise through military merit, gradually becoming a main pillar of the Han Zhao regime. After the Jin-Han Zhao conflict broke out, Liu Yao carved out territory in Guangzhong and established former Zhao, while Shi Lei controlled Hebei and founded later Zhao. Later, Zhao then destroyed former Zhao and nearly unified the north. But after Shi Hu, nephew of Shi Lei, died, later Zhao was plunged into constant civil wars and finally was destroyed by the Han Chinese Ran Min. Ran Min was extremely fierce. He was unwilling to spare any member of the later Zhao ruling clan. He not only annihilated the later Zhao royal family, but also issued the notorious Slaughter of the Hu, nearly exterminating the non-Han people of the Central Plains. To be honest, the fates of these 5 tribes were very similar, first rising, reaching their peak, and then quickly collapsing. Among them, the most remarkable was the Northern Wei dynasty, founded by Tuoba Xianbei. At least they ruled the north for 148 years. From the founding of Han Zhao to the unification of the north by Northern Wei, in 136 years, 5 minority groups successively established 16 separatist regimes. This is known in history as the 16 Kingdoms of the Five Barbarians, also called the Chaos of the Five Barbarians. The Five Barbarians referred to the Xiongnu, Xianbei, Di, and Qiang. Their regimes were all located north of the Yangtze River, while the Han-dominated Eastern Jin occupied the lands south of the Yangtze. First, about the 16 kingdoms. They were Han Zhao, former Zhao, later Zhao, former Qin, former Yan, later Qin, later Yan, northern Yan, western Qin, southern Yan, former Liang, later Liang, northern Liang, southern Liang, western Liang, and Cheng Han, as well as Xia, Hu Xia. Among them, the regimes founded by the Han people numbered only 3, former Liang, western Liang, and northern Yan. Let us briefly review the specifics of the 16 kingdoms, beginning with Han Zhao. At the end of the Western Jin, during the War of the Eight Princes, the Xiongnu Liu Yuan was the first to raise an army and found a state. He broke into the capital of Western Jin, captured 2 Western Jin emperors, and established the state of Han. His ruling clan was Lu. Later, the name of Han was changed to Zhao in order to distinguish it from later Zhao, and thus it was called former Zhao. Liu Yuan of the Xiongnu was originally an orphan, essentially a slave of the state, who rose up to sing his own song. Later, Zhao was founded by the Jieman Shi Le. He was born poor and was once sold as a slave. He struggled in hardship, starting as a low-ranking officer, and gradually became a great general under Liu Yuan. Later, he broke away from the control of Han Zhao and established his own state in Hebei, proclaiming himself Emperor of Zhao. Former Zhao and later Zhao then fought bitterly for control of northern China. Liu Yao could not match the capable Shi Le and drunkenly went out to battle, where he was captured by former Qin. The state of Qi perished. Afterward, later Zhao under Shi Le unified the north. Though Shi Le was a Hu man, he earnestly pursued Sinicization, restoring the institutions of the Han. Because of the rigid policies of Western Jin, the state rose and fell quickly. Later, Shi Le died, and the tyrant Shi Hu seized power. Internal strife erupted continuously. Shi Hu's grandson even attempted to restore the Han surname, but soon decreed massacres and purges, which led to the collapse of later Zhao. When later Zhao fell, the Murong clan of the Xianbei seized the chance to march into Hebei. They destroyed the regime of Ran Min, who had relied on his personal strength to resist, and established the former Yan state. Former Yan's pool of talent was remarkable among the Wuhu 16 kingdoms. Murong Ke of Taiyuan possessed both virtue and military brilliance. His brother, Murong Cui, was hailed as the foremost general of the northern dynasties. Another brother, Murong Dai, was also gifted with outstanding ability, but too much talent within one clan sparked jealousy and infighting. After Murong Ke's death, Murong Cui was distrusted by the emperor and forced into hiding. The court descended into chaos. Meanwhile, to the west, former Qin was rising under Fu Jian and his brilliant minister Wang Meng. With this unstoppable partnership, Qin forces marched east and destroyed former Yan. The vast empire of former Qin emerged. Its founding leaders, Fu Hong and Fu Sheng, had only been men of ordinary ability. But under Fu Jian, the state suddenly flourished. Fu Jian was known for employing talent without waste and replacing Fu Sheng's cruelty with a more enlightened rule. He recruited Han scholars and often promoted reforms based on Han institutions. Proclaiming himself a son of heaven like the Han emperors, he swore to unify the realm. During his reign, he destroyed former Yan and later Liang, making former Qin stronger than ever. Yet Fu Jian grew arrogant, ignoring hidden dangers within. He recklessly launched a massive southern expedition with over 900,000 troops against Eastern Jin. At the Battle of Fei River, his army suffered a crushing defeat. Ethnic conflicts within the empire exploded, and former Qin collapsed rapidly. In its place arose later Qin, founded by Yao Qiang. Its territory roughly covered parts of Shanxi, Shanxi, Gansu, Ningxia, and Henan. Though the Qiang had entered the Central Plains early, their strength was long weak. They survived by maneuvering between Eastern Jin and the northern Hu states. Yao Qiang later claimed he was haunted to death by the ghost of Fu Jian. His successors lacked capable talent and military strength. By the reign of the third emperor, Yao Hong, internal rebellion broke out. Eastern Jin then launched a northern expedition and destroyed later Qin. The Murong clan revived again, this time with later Yan. Murong Cui, surviving through former Qin's turmoil, did not betray Fujian, but waited until old age to restore Yan's territory and establish later Yan. Yet by then, a new northern power was rising, Northern Wei, founded by the Tuoba clan of the Xianbei on the northern steppe. After Murong Cui's death, his son Murong Bao proved incompetent and was soon defeated by Northern Wei. The Murong clan revived yet again with southern Yan. After later Yan's collapse, Murong Dai led forces into Shandong and founded another Yan state, known in history as Southern Yan. But the territory was small and weak. When its last ruler, Murong Chao, rashly provoked Eastern Jin, the Jin general Liu Yu crushed him. Southern Yan was destroyed and Murong Chao was executed in Jiangkang. The Yan name revived once more as Northern Yan. After later Yan's fall, Gao Yun, Murong Yun, a relative of Murong Bao, fled to Longcheng and continued the Yan title. Gao Yun, Murong Yun, once considered virtuous, reverted to cruelty after claiming kingship. This small state lingered in the ruins of later Yan. Later, the courtier Fengba killed Gao Yun, Murong Yun, quelled rebellion, and ruled as king. Eventually, Northern Yan too was destroyed by Northern Wei. Another power, Western Jin, arose under Chifu Guoren of the Xianbei in Longxi. At first loyal to former Qin, he took control of southern Gansu and eastern Qinghai after its collapse and founded Western Qin. The state once fell to later Qin but revived and gained dominance in the northwest, even defeating Tufa Nutan of southern Liang. Yet after 46 years, Western Qin was destroyed by the rising state of Xia Huxia in northern Shaanxi. Xia Huxia itself was founded by Helian Bobo, a Xiongnu. His tribe had first been under later Qin, but Helian Bobo, as ambitious as his name suggested, rebelled fiercely. He waged guerrilla warfare to weaken later Qin, forcing them into helplessness. After Eastern Jin destroyed later Qin, Helian Bobo seized Guanzhong, making Xia Huxia the strongest regime in Guanzhong and Longxi. After his death, his sons fought for the throne, and eventually the state was conquered by Northern Wei. The last remaining regime of the Jiang clan was former Liang. During the Wuhu chaos, Zhang Gui, governor of Liangzhou under Western Jin, declared independence, while Eastern Jin and the northern Hu states were too occupied to interfere. Thus, he effectively ruled as a sovereign. The Jiang family's former Liang endured for 76 years, repelling invasions from former Zhao and later Zhao. But repeated assaults from Hu states and growing instability eventually led to its destruction at the hands of former Qin. The later Liang, known as the Old Hen Caring for Chicks, was founded by Lu Guang, a great general of the former Qin. He was ordered to lead a western expedition, during which he destroyed the Zhang family regime of former Liang. At that time, the former Qin collapsed and Lu Guang declared himself king in Liangzhou, establishing the later Liang. Later, Liang was locked in constant conflict with Tufa Nutan of southern Liang and Juk Mengshun of northern Liang. The state declined day by day. After 13 years, Emperor Lulong could no longer withstand the pressure from the two Liangs. He abandoned his state, fled east to Chang'an, and sought refuge with the later Qin, whereupon later Liang perished. During its rule in Liangzhou, as the later Liang declined, many of its ministers defected and established new regimes, namely Northern Liang, Western Liang, and Southern Liang. Therefore, the Lu family's later Liang was called the Old Hen Caring for Chicks. Southern Liang, a military regime, arose among the Hexi Xianbei. When Lu Guang destroyed former Liang, Tufa Wugu took advantage of the situation to rise in today's Western Gansu and Ningxia regions. This small country was squeezed between later Liang, Western Qin, and Northern Liang. It remained weak, and after suffering a surprise attack by Western Qin, it was destroyed. Northern Liang was far more warlike. It was first established by Duan Ye, a minister of later Liang, but real power later fell into the hands of the Xiongnu chieftain Juk Mengshun, who became its true founder. Duke Mengshun was one of the most capable rulers of the Liang states. During his reign, he waged continuous wars against southern Liang, captured its capital, and, through feigned attacks and strategic deception, eliminated Li Gao's western Liang. Northern Liang's territory extended into the southern parts of today's Xinjiang and northwestern Gansu. Its northern position, compared with southern Liang, gave rise to the name Northern Liang. Eventually, it was destroyed by the rising Northern Wei. Western Liang was established by Li Gao, who claimed descent from the famous Han Dynasty general Li Guang. Originally a later Liang figure, Li Gao founded his own state in the western part of Liangzhou, known historically as Western Liang. Its territory extended wide in the west, while limited in the east. Western Liang bordered Northern Liang, and the two fought year after year. Finally, Western Liang was conquered by Northern Liang. After the Tang dynasty was established, Li Gao was posthumously honored as the ancestral Prince Zhao of Liang. In the south, the only small state was Chenghan. It was founded by the D leader Li Xiong. During the reign of Emperor Wu of Jin, Sichuan was thrown into chaos. Li Tei and his brother Li Liu led exiled refugees in rebellion, killing the provincial governor and declaring independence, establishing Chenghan. Its power was limited to Sichuan, and because it was cut off from the Eastern Jin and Northern regimes, it chose isolation. For 46 years, it enjoyed relative peace, providing stability and prosperity to its people. Later, it was destroyed by the Eastern Jin general Huan Wen. Most of these northern states were eventually destroyed by the powerful Northern Wei Empire. In the south, the Song dynasty replaced the Jin dynasty, marking another great era of division in Chinese history as the northern and southern dynasties began. This process of barbarians mixing with China profoundly influenced history. First, it greatly altered the population composition of China. Large numbers of northern nomadic peoples entered the Central Plains, reshaping its demographic structure. At the same time, to escape the wars, huge numbers of Central Plains people migrated southward. Their arrival in the Jiangnan and Lingnan regions changed the demographics there as well. As a result, the northern economy was severely damaged, while the south saw development. During the Wei, Jin, and northern and southern dynasties, the Central Plains suffered enormous destruction from endless wars, and economic growth stagnated. Meanwhile, the influx of northern migrants into the south not only increased the population, but also brought more advanced production techniques and management practices from the Central Plains. After 300 years of such development, Jiangnan became a prosperous region, laying the foundation for China's economic center to shift southward after the Tang dynasty. Culturally, the impact was equally immense. In an age of turmoil, people who saw no hope turned to religion for solace. Thus, during the Wei, Jin, and northern and southern dynasties, both north and south witnessed the flourishing of religions. Buddhism was increasingly embraced by the Chinese people, while Taoism matured both in organization and doctrine. Meanwhile, Confucianism entered a relative decline. On the other hand, as minority peoples entered the Central Plains, they brought their own cultural traditions. Once they assimilated into the Han population, their contributions left lasting influence. Yet many of them lived their whole lives struggling painfully in the tension between the Han and the nomadic peoples. He had once slaughtered Han people mercilessly, yet later, in order to overthrow later Zhao, he carried out the slaughter of the Hu, sending hundreds of thousands of non-Han to their graves. This gave the Han, who were on the brink of extinction, a legendary chance at survival. In the following years, he directly or indirectly killed more than 3 million Hu. He was none other than Ranmin, known as the Martial King of Heaven. Ironically, Ranmin, hailed as the savior of the Han, had always believed in his youth that he himself was a Hu. He was the adopted grandson of Shihu, the emperor of later Zhao. That is why his name at first was Shimin, not Ranmin. Who was Shihu? He was the third emperor of later Zhao, a tyrant addicted to killing. Among his most outrageous acts was, after invading the Central Plains, capturing 200,000 Han women at one time, ordering all soldiers to abuse them on the spot, then at night, turning them into slaves and even food supplies for the army. He drowned many of them with leftover liquor, throwing their bodies into the river. This murderous madman, surprisingly, cherished Ranmin like his own grandson, something difficult to imagine. But in fact, this was closely tied to Ranmin's abilities. Unlike Shihu's boorish sons, Ranmin possessed intelligence, keen observation, and mastery in both civil and military skills. His swordsmanship far surpassed other children of his age. By adulthood, he stood 8 chi tall, a formidable general skilled in both strategy and valor. In his early years, Ranmin had never been defeated. Shihu granted him the title of General of the Border, showing his deep favor. In the Battle of Qiang, Shihu's forces suffered a crushing defeat, with later Zhao troops fleeing in panic. Only Ranmin's guerrilla force of 300 men emerged intact, and at times even threw the enemy into confusion. From then on, Ranmin became famous in a single battle. Shihu promoted him to Northern Zhonglang General, entrusting him with defending later Zhao's northern frontier. In the years that followed, Ranmin repeatedly distinguished himself on the borders. He often stopped enemy forces numbering in the thousands with only a handful of casualties among his own men. In 347, later Zhao's general Liang Du rose in rebellion at Yongcheng. At first, his army advanced with unstoppable momentum, charging through Tongguan and threatening the capital Luoyang, slaughtering all the troops Shihu had sent against him. Shihu, driven to desperation, appointed his son Shibin as Grand Commander to deal with the threat. At that time, Shimin served under Shibin as general who conquers the caitiffs. In 349, Shimin struck directly, killing Liang Du and annihilating his rebel army east of Xingyang. After this battle, Ranmin's reputation spread far and wide. The Xiongnu, Xianbei, Qiang and other groups all praised him. No regime dared again to fight against later Zhao when Ranmin was present. But soon, an unexpected event occurred. In April of the same year, Shihu died of illness, ending his bloody life. After his death, the 11-year-old Crown Prince Shi took the throne. Shi lasted only 33 days before being deposed by his brother Shizun, who declared himself emperor. In order to win over Ranmin, Shizun once promised him, "If you follow me faithfully, I will make you crown prince in the future." But after ascending the throne, he instead made his own son crown prince. Ranmin was granted the rank of Grand General of the Palace Gate and other high posts, but he was never made heir. Outwardly, Ranmin did not show resentment, but in secret he frequently gathered troops and promised rewards to his trusted followers. This aroused Shizun's suspicion. He decided simply to accuse Ranmin of treason and eliminate him. But this plan was discovered by Shijian, who secretly informed Shimin in advance. Upon learning of it, Ranmin quickly raised an army, stormed the palace, and stabbed Shizun to death with spears. He then supported Shijian as emperor. At this point, Shijian no longer had much ambition to be emperor. He spent his days indulging in pleasures at home. Yet, even so, he remained deeply wary of Ranmin. When he learned that Ranmin was not entirely Hu but in fact of Han blood, his suspicion grew even stronger. A series of demotions and assassination attempts followed, which finally buried Ranmin's trust in the Shi clan. Upon discovering his true Han identity, his grief over the Shi clan's betrayal turned into deep hatred against the Hu people as a whole. This hatred would soon erupt in full force. In November of the year 349, the general of Longxiang, Sun Fudao, gathered 3,000 men and attempted to lure Shimin out of camp in order to ambush and kill him. Yet Shimin had already seen through Sun Fudao's plan. Instead, he led the entire garrison into open revolt. Nearly 10,000 soldiers marched out of the city and crushed Sun Fudao's 3,000 troops, scattering them in complete rout. At the same time, Ranmin led several thousand elite soldiers, tore down Jinming Gate, and forced his way into the palace. His troops stormed into the imperial city with overwhelming momentum. When Shizun saw Ranmin's furious advance, his legs gave way and he could hardly stand. Ranmin then issued a stern order in front of the emperor. All 6 armies, both inside and outside the capital, if anyone dared raise troops against him, would be executed. The same command extended to the Xiongnu, Jie, Xianbei, Qiang, and Di. If any dared take up arms, they would be beheaded immediately. To calm the people, Ranmin decreed that palace women who were loyal could stay, while those unwilling could freely leave. His true intent was to give those who had plotted against him a path of escape and to drive them out of the palace while keeping only those loyal. Yet he never expected that once this order was issued, thousands of palace women fled en masse, while large numbers of Han poured into the city. Most of these Han were slaves of the later Zhao. Because Ranmin, after learning he was of Han descent, had repeatedly issued prohibitions against killing Han, these people had survived. Ranmin was astonished to find that those most loyal to him were none other than the slaves he had once despised. This made him more firmly embrace his Han identity and completely lose trust in the Hu. When another Hu noble massacred an entering Han slave family, Ranmin's patience reached its limit. In fury, he issued an order throughout the land. Whoever killed a Hu and brought the head to Fanyang Gate would be rewarded, appointed as an official of rank 3, or promoted as a squad leader in the army. This was the infamous Edict to Kill the Hu. According to it, anyone who slew a Hu could exchange the head for office or military command. At this, the Hu were thrown into shock. To prove his determination, Ranmin himself led troops in brutal massacres. In only 3 days and nights, more than 200,000 Hu were slaughtered, their corpses dumped outside the city to feed wild dogs. Seeing this, Han people across the north responded to his call. They began killing Hu everywhere. The Hu, who had long thought the Han weak and submissive, never imagined such defiance. Caught unprepared, they suffered defeat after defeat. The Han not only captured Hu prisoners but also executed them in cruel ways. Under the call of the Edict to Kill the Hu, the Han of the northern region slaughtered nearly 1 million Hu. Shizi, upon learning of these events, plotted extreme retaliation. In 350, while Ranmin was campaigning against a Hu rebellion outside the capital, Shizi secretly contacted armies in various regions, attempting to trap and destroy him at Yecheng. But Ranmin had anticipated this and intercepted the messages. He rushed back swiftly, seized Shizi, and deposed him without giving him a chance to defend himself. Soon afterward, Shizi and all relatives of Shihu were executed at the palace gate. The court ministers, witnessing this, panicked and all knelt in submission, proclaiming Ranmin emperor. On that day, he restored his true family name, Ran, and declared the founding of the state of Wei, known as Ranwei. After proclaiming himself emperor, Ranmin did not slacken. He fought bitterly against the last remnants of the Shi royal clan. In the process, he sought reconciliation with Eastern Jin, even inviting them to join forces. But because of the lingering fear of later Zhao and Shi Hu, Eastern Jin did not trust Ranmin and rejected his overtures. With no allies, Ranmin led his troops alone. In April 352, he captured Yozhou and Jizhou, but in May, while resisting enemy forces, he was defeated and captured by Morongjun. At Yecheng, Ranmin was executed. By August, the Ranwei regime collapsed. Looking back at Ranmin and his regime of only 2 years, one cannot help but sigh. Ranmin and his Ranwei state were merely a force caught between Han and Hu, struggling in vain. He won neither the full recognition of the Han nor acceptance from the Hu. He could only establish authority within his domain through violence and slaughter. Such massacres were like a desperate man, trapped in a quagmire, clinging to a straw in a hopeless struggle. Yet the outcome was already predetermined. Many people say that Ranmin's order to kill the Hu was cruel, inhumane, and a crime against humanity, making him a sinner for all ages. But was this really the case? Judging the ancients with modern eyes is itself an irresponsible, godlike perspective on history. If we put ourselves in that era, although the order to kill the Hu was brutal and did cause many innocent deaths, at that time it was perhaps the only measure that could be taken. Indeed, it protected the survival of the Han people as a nation. At the founding of the Western Jin, the Han population exceeded 20 million. But by the time of Ranmin's extermination campaign, the number of Han across the Central Plains had fallen to fewer than 4 million, and in some areas, there were not even 20,000 left. Without Ranmin and his order against the Hu, what fate would have befallen the Han people? It is beyond imagination, too terrifying to contemplate. From today's perspective, Ranmin was certainly a butcher without mercy, an extreme nationalist. But in his own time, to the Han who endured slaughter and torment, he was undeniably their savior, even hailed as a great national hero. After the collapse of the Western Jin, chaos engulfed the realm. Members of the royal clan and noble families fled to Qiang, where the Eastern Jin regime was established. Nomadic peoples in the north seized the opportunity to invade southward. Thus, Chinese history entered an era of unprecedented upheaval, conflict, and cultural integration. From Liu Yuan's founding of the Han state to the Northern Wei's unification of the north, a span of 136 years, 5 minority groups successively established 16 separatist regimes. This period is known in history as the 16 Kingdoms of the Five Barbarians, or simply the Five Barbarians' chaos in China. The Five Barbarians were the Xiongnu, Xianbei, Ji, Di, and Qiang. The states they established were located north of the Yangtze River, while the Han-led Eastern Jin held the regions south of the Yangtze. The 16 kingdoms included Han Zhao, former Zhao, later Zhao, former Qin, later Qin, former Yan, later Yan, northern Yan, western Qin, southern Yan, former Liang, later Liang, northern Liang, southern Liang, western Liang, Chenghan, and Xia. Among them, only 3 were founded by Han Chinese, former Liang, western Liang, and northern Yan. Let us briefly look at the specifics. First, Han Zhao. At the end of the Western Jin, during the War of the Eight Princes, the Xiongnu leader Liu Yuan was the first to rise in rebellion, breaking into the Jin capital, capturing 2 emperors in succession, and establishing the Han state. His clan surname was Liu. Later, the regime renamed itself Zhao, and to distinguish it from the later Zhao, historians called it former Zhao. Second, later Zhao. Its founder, Xilei of the Jie people, was of humble birth and at one time sold as a slave. Struggling against hardship, he rose step by step from the lowest ranks, eventually becoming a general under Liu Yuan. Later, he broke free from Han Zhao's control and established his own state in Hebei, proclaiming himself Emperor of Zhao. The 2 Zhao regimes contended fiercely for supremacy. In a decisive battle, Liu Yao could not match the shrewd and capable Xilei, was defeated while drunk in battle, and his state perished. Xilei's later Zhao unified the north. Although Xilei was a Hu, he pursued Sinicization, restoring the Imperial Academy and maintaining the institutions of the Western Jin. The state enjoyed a period of prosperity, but after his death, the tyrant Shi Hu took power, and the country fell into constant civil strife. Shi Hu attempted to restore Han customs but also decreed the massacre of the Hu, which ultimately led to later Zhao's downfall. Third, former Yan. After the collapse of later Zhao, the Murong clan of the Xianbei seized the opportunity to march into Hebei, destroying Ranmin's short-lived state of Ranwei and established the former Yan. Among the 16 kingdoms, former Yan was known for its abundance of talent. Prince of Taiyuan Murong was a man of virtue and ability, while Murong was highly skilled in both governance and warfare. Murong Cui, his brother, was famed as the greatest general of the northern dynasties, and another brother, Murong Dai, was celebrated as a statesman of exceptional talent. Unfortunately, too many talents bred internal rivalry. After Murong death, Murong Cui was distrusted by the emperor and forced into seclusion. The state fell into turmoil, while in the west loomed the powerful threat of former Qin. At that time, the invincible duo of Fu Jian and Wang Meng held power. The Qin army marched east, and former Yan was destroyed. Thus emerged the unprecedentedly vast empire of former Qin. Former Qin rose almost at the same time as the Murong clan. Its founding leaders Fu Hong and Fu Sheng were men of mediocre talent, but when Fu Jian came to power, the state suddenly flourished. Fu Jian was known for employing men to the fullest, and he abandoned the cruel rule of Fu Sheng. By appointing the renowned Han scholar Wang Meng, he pushed for reforms under Han-style governance. Fu Jian regarded himself as the son of heaven of the Han, with the ambition to unify all under heaven. During his reign, he destroyed former Yan, later Liang, and the state of Dai. His power reached its peak. However, Fu Jian grew arrogant, ignoring hidden internal dangers. He forcibly launched a southern campaign with more than 900,000 troops in winter. The result was the crushing defeat at the Battle of Fei River. Ethnic conflicts within the country intensified, and former Qin quickly collapsed. The sly later Qin soon rose. Founded by Yao Chang, its territory roughly included parts of Shanxi, Shanxi, Gansu, and parts of Henan. The Qiang had entered the Central Plains long before, but their strength had always been weak, surviving only in the cracks between Eastern Jin and other powers. Yao Chang later died in terror, dreaming of Fu Jian's ghost. His successors of the Yao clan lacked talent, and the state remained weak. By the reign of the third emperor Yao Hong, internal chaos broke out. Eastern Jin seized the chance to launch a northern expedition and destroyed later Qin. The Murong clan revived twice more. The first was the state of later Yan. Murong Cui, already in his 60s, rose after former Qin collapsed. Unlike Yao Chang, he did not turn against Fu Jian in ingratitude. He restored Yan's territory and established later Yan. Yet, by then, the newly emerging state of Northern Wei had risen on the northern steppes. After Murong Cui's death, his son Murong Bao proved incompetent and was destroyed by Northern Wei. The second revival was the state of Southern Yan. After later Yan's fall, Murong Dai, unable to save the situation, led troops into Shandong and established another Yan state, known in history as Southern Yan. Its territory was small by the time of the last ruler, Murong Chao. Overestimating his own strength, he provoked Eastern Jin. Jin forces, like a raging fire, swiftly destroyed Southern Yan. Murong Chao was executed in Jiangkang. The remnant of Yan, renamed as Northern Yan, emerged after the collapse of later Yan. Gao Yun, Murong Yun, the adopted son of Murong Bao, fled to Longcheng and carried on the Yan title. Though of Han origin, after becoming ruler, he reverted to his true nature. This small state survived amidst the chaos following later Yan, but later Gao Yun, Murong Yun, was killed, and his minister Feng Ba pacified the rebellion and declared himself king. Eventually, Northern Yan too was destroyed by Northern Wei. As for Western Qin, its founder Qi Fu Guoren was a Xianbei man from Longxi. At first, he served under former Qin. After former Qin collapsed, he seized control of southern Gansu and eastern Qinghai, establishing Western Qin. Once, Western Qin was destroyed by the newly rising later Qin, but it revived and dominated the northwest, even destroying Tufa state. After 46 years, Western Qin was wiped out by the newly rising Xia, Hu Xia, in northern Shaanxi. Xia, Hu Xia, was founded by Helian Bobo of the Qiang people. His tribe had originally been subordinate to later Qin, but, true to his name, Helian Bobo was ambitious and sought to overthrow later Qin. He used guerrilla tactics to wear down later Qin. Later Qin was helpless. When Eastern Jin launched its northern expedition and destroyed later Qin, Helian Bobo entered Guanzhong and quickly became the strongest power in Guanzhong and Longxi. After his death, his sons fought for the throne, and finally Northern Wei conquered the state. Among the last Han-founded states in the north was former Liang. During the chaos of the Five Barbarians, Zhang Gui, governor of Liangzhou under Western Jin, took control. With Eastern Jin busy in the southeast and the Central Plains consumed by wars, he effectively established an independent state. The Zhang family's former Liang lasted for 76 years, repelling attacks from former Zhao and later Zhao. But facing repeated invasions from Hu states and internal disorder, it was finally destroyed by former Qin. Later, Liang was founded by Lu Guang. He had been a general of former Qin, sent west to conquer. He destroyed the Zhang family's former Liang, When former Qin collapsed, Lu Guang set himself up in Liangzhou and proclaimed Later Liang. During its rule, Later Liang faced constant conflict with Tufa Nutan and Duke Mengshun of northern Liang. The state grew weaker, and after only 13 years, the Emperor Lu Long could not withstand the combined pressure of the other two Liang states. He abandoned the realm, fled east to Chang'an, and submitted to Later Qin. Thus, Later Liang perished. During Later Liang's decline, many ministers defected and established Northern Liang, Western Liang, and Southern Liang. For this reason, the Lu clan's Later Liang was derided as the old hen with many chicks. As for Southern Liang, it was founded by the Xianbei of Hexi. When Lu Guang destroyed former Liang, Tufa Wugu, rising in the region of present-day Western Gansu and Ningxia, this small state stood between Later Liang, Western Qin, and Northern Liang. It never contended for dominance. After suffering a sudden attack from Western Qin, it was destroyed. Northern Liang was especially warlike. At first, it was controlled by Duanye, a minister of latter Liang, but later power passed into the hands of the Xiongnu leader Duke Mengshun. Among the rulers of Liang, Duke Mengshun was the most ambitious. During his reign, he waged constant battles with southern Liang, captured its capital, and then, by feinting east while striking west, destroyed the Li clan's Western Liang. Northern Liang controlled parts of Xinjiang south and the northwest of Gansu, located to the north of southern Liang, and thus named Northern Liang in contrast. In the end, it was destroyed by Northern Wei. The ancestors of the Tang dynasty founded Western Liang. Li Gao, claiming descent from the famed flying general of Han, came from Later Liang and established his state in the western part of Liangzhou, known as Western Liang. Its territory extended broadly, bordering Northern Liang, with whom it clashed year after year until finally it was conquered. After the Tang dynasty was established, Li Gao was honored as the ancestral founder, enshrined as Zhao King of Liang. In the south, the only small state was Chenghan, founded by the Di under Li Te and his brother Li Liu. During the reign of Emperor Wu of Jin, Sichuan fell into chaos. The Li brothers rallied Hu and Han settlers in revolt, killed the inspector of Yi province, and set up their own regime. Chang'an remained confined to Sichuan, self-governing but isolated. It could not contend with Eastern Jin or the northern states. Thus, it kept its doors shut and lived in peace for 46 years, allowing the people to enjoy stability and prosperity until it was destroyed by the Eastern Jin general Huan Wen. Most of the northern states were eventually eliminated by the rising empire of Northern Wei, while in the south the Song dynasty replaced Jin. History then entered another great era of division, the Northern and Southern dynasties. The Wuhu chaos had a profound impact on the course of history. First, it dramatically altered China's population structure. Large numbers of northern nomadic peoples poured into the Central Plains, changing the demographics there. Meanwhile, countless Central Plains people fleeing the wars migrated south into Jiangnan and Lingnan, reshaping those regions as well. In the north, war devastated the economy, while the south experienced development. During the Wei, Jin, and Northern and Southern dynasties, the Central Plains suffered prolonged destruction, and economic growth stagnated. But as northern migrants moved south, they not only brought numbers but also transplanted advanced technologies and skills from the Central Plains. After 300 years, Jiangnan had become highly prosperous, laying the foundation for the later shift of China's economic center to the south from the Tang dynasty onward. Culturally, the impact was immense. In times of turmoil, people found no hope in worldly affairs and turned to religion for solace. During the Wei, Jin, and Northern and Southern dynasties, both North and South saw the flourishing of religion. Buddhism gradually gained acceptance among the Chinese people. Taoism matured in both organization and doctrine. Meanwhile, Confucianism entered a relative decline. As minority groups entered the Central Plains, they also brought their cultures. Once they assimilated into the Han, these influences blended into the civilization of the region. Yet barely a decade later, in 290, the famous Rebellion of the Eight Princes broke out. Emperor Wu of Jin, unable to manage state affairs, allowed palace power struggles to rage. The empress and court ministers seized control, and this absurd situation inflamed the ambitions of many. The loss of political control dragged the dynasty into deep civil strife. Rebellions and coups were not rare in Chinese history, but this event was different. It plunged the nation into its darkest hour. It changed the political structure of the time and ushered northern China into the chaos of the Wuhu 16 kingdoms. The Han capital, Luoyang, was occupied by the Xiongnu, and the imperial capital, Chang'an, also fell to them. Their armies swept south across the Yellow River Basin, even reaching the Huai River region, and for the first time in history, entering the Yangtze Basin. Since the Han dynasty, once mighty military power collapsed instantly. Oaths of punishing invaders even from afar became hollow jokes. Chinese civilization faced unprecedented turmoil. This situation lasted for 300 years and nearly transformed the entire nation's character. From a broader view, it marked a great turning point in Chinese history, shifting both the political and economic center. The process of maintaining a unified state in the Central Plains became increasingly difficult, and the progress of the nation was completely disrupted. How exactly did this turmoil erupt? What truly happened during it, and what far-reaching consequences did it bring? Today, let us talk about the War of the Eight Princes. First, let us look at the historical situation of that time. After the flames of the Spring and Autumn and Warring States periods, the Central Plains was unified once again by Great Qin. This was followed by the powerful and unified glory of the two Han dynasties. After centuries of rest and recovery, history once again moved in its familiar cycle, as long periods of unity inevitably gave way to division. 160 years after the founding of the Eastern Han, great changes began to unfold. Around the year 180, the central government gradually lost its authority, and the realm drifted into a tripartite division. The group of Cao Cao, the group of Liu Bei, and the group of Sun Quan each recruited talented men and swore to achieve the great cause of reunification. Yet Chinese history has always been filled with dramatic reversals. Although the three kingdoms fought for nearly a century, the opportunity unexpectedly fell into the hands of the Sima family. In December of the year 265, Sima Yan forced Emperor Cao Huan of Wei to abdicate, establishing the Jin Empire. By this time, Shu Han had long since perished, and the pattern of the three kingdoms was broken. The surrender of Shu Han greatly boosted the morale of the Jin dynasty, which began to stabilize and enter a new historical chapter. In the year 279, Western Jin launched a massive military campaign, sending its forces in 6 routes to sweep through the southeast. In the end, Emperor Sun Hao of Wu, unable to resist, bound himself and came out of the city to surrender. Through this great conquest, Western Jin realized the unification of the entire realm. Emperor Wu of Jin Sima Yan, as the founding sovereign, implemented a series of political reforms. He could be considered an enlightened ruler. During wartime, he had followed frugal policies, prioritized the recovery of farmland and waterworks, simplified corvée and military service, and promoted an approachable style of governance. These measures ushered the Jin dynasty into a relatively prosperous period, historically known as the Taikang prosperity. During the Taikang years, the land was peaceful, the people were wealthy, cattle and horses roamed freely in the fields without fear of theft, doors of homes stood open, and people lived harmoniously like kin. If someone fell into hardship, there were always others willing to extend a helping hand. At that time, Western Jin was truly a country overflowing with riches. Society was flourishing, the people lived in abundance, and ostentation became a trend among some. Faced with such prosperity, Emperor Wu of Jin gradually lost the ambition he once had. Wealth and indulgence consumed his heart, and he drifted with the court officials into complacency, losing the fervent pursuit of the nation's future. Sima Yan became addicted to pleasure, and his daily life was almost entirely occupied by the affairs of the harem. Within the palace, enjoyment and extravagance dominated, while political matters were nearly neglected. Officials no longer cared about state affairs, treating indifference as a kind of honor. Everyone grew accustomed to this idle life, and the management of the state almost came to a standstill. The emperor and his ministers focused more on personal pleasure and securing their own power. Even those who advocated thrift were often regarded as vulgar and even rejected. Although the Jin dynasty had just unified the realm and political and economic systems still functioned, one pressing issue remained unresolved, an issue that would ultimately determine the fate of the dynasty. Since the late Eastern Han, China had entered an age of warlordism. Warlords across the land needed the strong support of great aristocratic families. Because the state lacked a unified central authority, rulers could not curb the power of the nobles as Emperor Wu of Han had once done, for fear of destabilizing the regime. As a result, the influence of these powerful clans grew unchecked. By the time of the Jin dynasty, the problem became even more serious, and in its later years, the situation worsened further. The very founding of the Jin Empire had been driven by these great clans. By then, class stratification was no longer a simple concept, but had become almost completely set in stone. For the aristocracy, protecting their interests became paramount, while social standards of evaluation narrowed to bloodline, with the rank of one's office determined not by merit but by lineage. Almost everything was determined by the background of one's father. This phenomenon created an unbelievable situation. Among the upper ranks there were no families of humble origin, and among the lower ranks there were no great clans. A few indulged in extravagant pleasures, drowning themselves in wine and dreams, while the majority, unable to break through the barriers of hereditary clans, clenched their teeth in bitterness and grew resentful. The politics and social structure of the state were firmly controlled by the interests of these powerful families, as if bound by an invisible force from which there was no escape. In order to safeguard the interests of the privileged class, the Western Jin government continuously yielded to these powers. The most fatal outcome was the implementation of the station system. This system restricted the movement of land and people, allowing the great clans to legally encroach upon land and, through illegal means, turn vast numbers of commoners into black households, peasants without formal registration. These black households virtually became the labor force of the great clans, hidden populations tied to their estates. Local officials and warlords also seized the people's resources without hesitation. In the early Western Jin, even gathering firewood or fetching water sometimes required purchasing permission. Life was extremely difficult. At the founding of Western Jin, though the Central Plains were relatively stable, the empire had enough resources to recover and rebuild, and the population slowly increased. But by the first year of Qiang, the official recorded population was only 16 million. In truth, how many were hidden within the estates of the great clans as unregistered laborers could never be known. Some estimated the number may have reached 5 million, even 10 million. The reality of Western Jin was exceedingly complex. As a unified empire, the grave imbalance of land and population deepened social division. The greatest sufferers were the Sima clan themselves. Sima Yan, as the founding emperor of Western Jin, though lustful, understood clearly that he was in fact using the blood and sweat of the common people nationwide to feed a privileged class. This class not only enjoyed superior political and economic status, but further oppressed the lives of ordinary people. When the world had just been unified, Sima Yan hastily took certain measures that would shape the course of history. He decreed that no province or commandery could keep troops, and royal clan members were forbidden to hold private armies. From a modern perspective, these two decisions appear extremely unwise, for they deprived the Sima house of a military foundation for political control, while scattering power into the hands of regional princes and great clans. At the time, Sima Yan may have thought that after peace was achieved, the true threat would not come from his brothers or the Hu peoples, but from those aristocrats spread across the provinces with power, wealth, and soldiers. Yet, as later chaos proved, tens of thousands or even hundreds of thousands of troops could be raised from the provinces at any time, showing this policy was never effectively carried out. This silent battle ended with Sima Yan's compromise, but he did not give up his ideals. If the task could not be completed in his own time, then let future generations achieve it. He placed all his hopes on his clever grandson, personally writing a glorious script for his future, planning for him to inherit the family's legacy and unify the empire. In order for Sima Yu to ascend smoothly to the throne, by the order of succession, his father, Sima Yan's son, would have to rule as emperor for a few years first. Yet what troubled Sima Yan was that this future crown prince's father was none other than the historically infamous foolish emperor Shao Sima. Sima Yan likely thought at the time, "Is it not just letting a fool rule for a few years? The sky will not collapse. Every family has its useless ones." But unexpectedly, this fool step by step climbed to the peak of power, becoming emperor. This development left many ministers dissatisfied, and they worried more deeply about the affairs of the state. In the process, a specific mode of power operation gradually formed. Officials were chosen as assistants, while Sima Yan's general plan for the future was to let the empress's relatives and the imperial clan jointly assist the princes, restraining one another. The empress's family would manage government, while the royal clan held military power. Yet Sima Yan's son, due to limited intelligence, became a puppet. He relied entirely on the words of others and lost his own judgment. This placed many constraints on him in actual governance, and he finally became the plaything of Empress Jia Nanfeng. Jia Nanfeng controlled him for 18 years, and in truth she was the one manipulating power behind the throne. Sima Yan's son became her puppet, incapable of making any decisions. At last, when the chance for true control arose, her swelling ambition drove Jia Nanfeng to seize sole authority. At that time, the actual controller of court affairs was the empress's relative, Yang Jun. Thus,